Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. So this is the shop tour video. Along with the shop tour, I want to cover basically how I process bowls. And that'll include out in the yard and flow through the yard, into the shop, into the drying shed, and so on. So I want to cover that this week, along with the tools that I use in the shop here, and what I'd like to maybe change and what I'd maybe do differently. So anyway, that's it. Somewhere along the video here, we're going to announce the 15,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. And so make sure you stick around for that. Anyway, let's head outside and we'll go from there. Okay, so out here in the processing yard, it's nice to be able to bring logs in, process them out here, and the ones that don't make the cut, that aren't suitable for turning, then you know what, I got my firewood pile right here to my right, and all the stuff that's not suitable for turning goes there, and then of course it's either burned in the house or burned in the shop. This is a bunch of logs, butternut, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here that came in just before it snows. As you can see, we've got some snow down, and so it'll be processed either this winter or in the springtime. I'm not too sure. Things have changed a little bit in my business, so I don't know exactly where I'm going to be going for sure. So as I'm processing wood, there's a bin in the back that all the offcuts go into, and again, what's not suitable for turning goes into that bin, and then I use it for heat in the shop and in the house. So you know, everything is used that I get. This would be, I would prefer this to be laid a little differently, and I'll show you here. Okay, so the things that I don't like about the way that I have this set up currently is, this is my quickie cutting rig that I made, and there's a video on my channel if you're curious about that, how I use it. I want to see that over there next to my firewood pile, because the logs get winched off this way. So it'd be nice to actually winch the logs off and then roll them right onto the rig. Right now the logs get winched off this, and the rig is perpendicular to the logs, so it's a bit of a pain. So once I get this cleaned up, that's going to be moved over here. This area here is predominantly shady, and this is where I'd like to see the logs kept that I'm going to use for turning. That way I'm not forced, they're out of the sun, and I mean there's a couple of reasons. That way they don't dry out and crack, and that way I don't actually work in the sun when I do processing. So there's a couple of reasons for that. But mostly it's to get them out of the sun so that I'm not forced to process them as soon as possible. So anyway, that's the big log pile that you see for bowls, and on this side of it is actually going to be logs that I use for making my oval cutting boards. So anyway, if you haven't checked out that video, make sure you check it out and you see how it's made. But essentially my chainsaw gets mounted in there and it acts like a chainsaw. And it's been a great rig. And again, there's my offcut bin over there. It's actually getting emptied quite a bit, so that's good. Really, in the run of a year, I could probably put a quart of firewood in there. So that's a significant amount of wood that's used for burning. As you can see, it's quite cold, and I think this morning was minus 11 Celsius. No, sorry, minus 14 Celsius. Anyway, let's go in the shop. Alright, so this is inside my clean room. This rack here, this is where I put the bowls. Usually when I'm just doing the bottoms on them. This year's a little bit of a different year, as we all know. So these bowls here, they're still for sale, and I've also got boards down below. I've actually got more boards. It's been a decent sale for bowls for me, even though it's been this COVID year. But anyway, if you still need some products, let me know. Send an email to my Gmail account, and I can shoot you some photos and show you what I got. So anyway, these are YouTube bowls on the top, and then these are bowls that I have for sale, and then of course the boards. In the room itself, all I have for heating is an electric heater here. I don't want any forced air heating, because this is a place that I'll put the bowls on the bench over there for the finishes to cure. So if you've got something that's going to be blowing air around, well, that's no good. You're going to get little bits of whatever in your finish. So all there is just electric heating. There's absolutely no air movement in this room, and that's the way that I want it. So over here, this ordinarily wouldn't have any of this stuff on here, but since I've been doing some epoxy work, I need a fairly clean place to work to do that. I do realize that any tiny little bit of something that gets inside of the epoxy now, you're going to see it. So it's important to try and keep things in a clean area like this is, cleanish. It's not as clean as it should be. So yeah, this is kind of the shipping and receiving and finish room, if you will. I do a lot of packing up of bowls in here. The Rubbermaids are here, so I just typically, when the bowls are finished, they get wrapped up and then put into these Rubbermaids and then put onto my show trailer. And then we go to shows, but that's not happening this year, so it's why things are kind of the way they are this year. All right, so the rack here, this just came from Costco, and it's good. If I could do this all over again, I think that I would have made this room a lot bigger than what it is. Maybe not a lot bigger, a couple feet that way certainly would have helped out in here. But anyway, it works. So let's go into the main shop and talk about it. Anyway, so as you come into the shop from the door behind me, I've got my inlay table here. I've actually got some products out for us to look at. You know, I do my best to try and keep this place as clean as I can, but you know, I'd sooner be turning than cleaning. It took me about 3 hours today to clean up the shop so that it's half decently presentable. So anyway, let's have a look at some of this stuff here. So if you've been here from the beginning, you know that I like to use hot melt glue, an electric frying pan, and you know, I keep getting asked, you know, what do you use? You know, I use whatever cheap glue I can get. This is the Mastercraft stuff from Canadian Tire here in Canada, and this is heavy duty glue stick. I've used all variety of different glue sticks. It doesn't seem to really matter. So of course I have to put the waste blocks on the bottom of my bowls. Yeah, so these are some of the inlay materials here, and this is what they look like in the raw form. So this is the lemon soapstone. This actually, it's greenish in color, but when it's crushed up into a powder and CA glue combined with it, it actually turns it pretty white. You see a very, very tiny touch of green in the finished product. Again, this is the blue soapstone that you see me use quite a bit. This came from Lee Valley. There's a link in the description for that, and I think there's an Amazon link as well. This is a big block of white alabaster. Now there's a lot here, and you know, I probably won't ever need to buy any more again. But that's kind of what that looks like in its raw state. I'm not sure where the alabaster came from, probably the US. Of course, pewter, you can get this from Sculptural Supply in Toronto. This is a big block of serpentine. Very dark inlay when it's combined with CA glue. This is black pearl soapstone. Again, I believe I got this from Sculptural Supply in Toronto as well. Brass shavings, really, really fine brass shavings. I got these from Etsy, I think that's where I bought these from. And this is actually a piece of lapis lazuli. And actually, the story behind this is I collected this in a market in Afghanistan when I was there on my second tour. So that's where this comes from. And the best lapis lazuli comes from Afghanistan. And it's just loaded with all kinds of pyrite. The bluer it is, the better quality it is, and it doesn't get much better than that. Anyway, tons of other inlays. All the white buckets in the back, they're all pieces of branches that have been kiln dried and then put into those buckets with the lids tight. You name it for inlays. This is what I'm using for my sharpening setup. I really want to upgrade this. This is one of the things that is got to get upgraded in my shop. I really would like to get a Panoramic slow grinder, water cooled grinder. So we'll have to see. If you've got one, let me know if you're happy with it. Don't get me wrong. This has done the job, but the wheels tend to get out of balance on it, and it just doesn't. It gives me a good cut, but I'm looking for something better. This is the one-way setup. So you can put any chisel on here and get the same grind with it. So if you haven't got one of those, I highly recommend it. And this is the sharpening jig that I use. It's the Ellsworth sharpening jig for sharpening the 5/8 bowl gouge by David Ellsworth. And that just goes in here and back and forth. I always use jigs. I don't freehand stuff. I have in the past, and I can't get the results that I want. Anyway, that's the inlay bench. Let's look at the flap sander. Okay, so this is my flap sander, and I just use this for my boards, cleaning up the edges of them. And the original flap sanding holder that was on here was just an absolute nightmare to change the paper on. So I made one of these actually not too long ago. I guess it was this year. I made my own, and these are all old belts that are out of my belt sander that I cut up after they've been used up, and then reuse them in here. Again, there's a drum on one side. Well, it's kind of a flap sander, but it's probably more a drum than anything. And then, of course, the flap sander itself. And originally, this unit was actually flipped around so that it runs in this configuration. That way, it can work on top of it as opposed to working underneath of it, which I'm not a fan of. So I unbolted the bolts that are under here and turned the motor around, but the switch is still there. Again, dust collection, so important whenever this is running. This kicks up a ton of dust. So it does an alright job trying to get a hold of it, but there certainly is probably better setups. But this, I don't even know if you can get this machine anymore. It's a Busy Bee model, which is kind of like I don't know, I guess I'll call it a Harbor Freight here in Canada. And anyway, it works good. It's just a motor. It's a pretty simple thing, so there's not much to go wrong with it. Let's have a look at the bandsaw. Okay, so this is my bandsaw. This is made by General International. I can cut 16 inches in throat depth here, and 12 inches under the guides on the saw. So this is a really good saw. I think it's got a 2 horsepower motor on it. It's been fairly reliable. I've had to change the bearings on it a few times. One of the knocks on wood turning, of course, if you do it the way that I do it, where you round the blanks first, all that moisture goes through the bandsaw, of course, and the wheels that are down, but the bearings that are down below really get saturated in water and have a tendency to seize up. So I've probably put about probably 8 sets of bearings on this in 8 years. So really, that's not that bad. And I've had to change the belts on it as well. Speaking of that. And yeah, so the doors come off quite easy, and for changing the blades, bandsaw blades. And what I use for bandsaw blades is 1/2 inch, 3 teeth per inch, and they're actually classified as a wood turner's bandsaw blade. And so it's got a really steep offset, so it cuts a really deep groove. It leaves a rough finish, but I don't really care. That's not what I'm going for. I'm going for get it done and not getting the blade all bound up, which can happen. There is a link in the description below for the bandsaw blades that I use. They're a company in Mississauga, R&D, I think is what they are. So anyway, very happy with their blades. I'll buy between 5 and 6 a year. Sometimes I'll sharpen them. I don't break them very often, but I certainly can. If I'm doing any resawing, I'll use a thicker blade, but I don't do a lot of resawing. This is predominantly used for rough and blanks before they go on the lathe. All right, let's talk about the lathe itself. All right, so I thought I'd put my coat on here because it's getting kind of cool. So this is a 20-inch general, and as you can see, I've made tool racks to bolt on the end of it. One of the main reasons why I bought this lathe is because I'm left-handed, and on the outboard end, of course, you've got left-hand threads. So it's comfortable for me to work on the outboard end of this lathe, because if they're right-hand threads, they wouldn't work. But since they're left-hand threads, it spins the way that I want it to, and it's more comfortable to use. So if you're a lefty in there, get one of these lathes. Now, what I don't like about the machine is the tailstock. I've already tore the quill shaft out of this once. It was replaced under warranty, and it was an upgrade to what was there before, so hopefully that's not going to happen again. I have had issues with it locking to the bed properly. I actually broke the handle off trying to lock it to the bed, and I did everything that I could do, like sanding underneath and cleaning things up. It just doesn't have the proper clamping power that I like for it to have under certain occasions. So anyway, the other thing on it too is the travel. I think it's only got 4 inches of travel. And again, this is not an entry-level lathe. This is a professional lathe. You know, this, when I bought it 8 years ago, was $7,000. So, you know, it's good. It's got a 2 horsepower motor. I wish it was a 5 horsepower motor. I can certainly, the further you get away from center, the more mechanical advantage you have. And I can stall this lathe quite easily with a 2 horsepower motor. So I'll have to make a decision in the future if the motor goes. I really want to get a 2436 one-way, but the problem with that is the one-way outboard threads are right hand, and that was the main reason why I didn't buy one. Looking back at it now, I should have bought the lathe and then took the arbor out and took down to a machine shop and say, hey, let's, can you make one of these but with left-hand threads? And then, you know, I would have had probably the machine that I really wanted to have. But, you know, anyway, I guess I wasn't as smart then as I am now. Anyway, it is what it is. So anyway, it does have the outboard turning attachment. A lot of lathes don't come with this. There's a little shelf down here. You know, and it's got all kinds of stuff on it. I've got some one-way chucks on there. Virtually all of my accessories are one-way manufacturing accessories. This piece that I built and put on the outside, actually probably in the future I'm going to redo this again, and I'm going to make it probably another foot larger, and that way I can get all of my chisels there that I want. So in most workshops, the lathe would probably be against the wall. It wouldn't be bolted in the center of the floor like this is. But you know, when I retired from the Army, I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and so this was going to be a wood turning studio and nothing else. So anyway, I brought that out and I bolted it. You know, it's not in the center of my shop. I could still get a car in here if I wanted to, but you know, this thing hasn't seen wheels in a very, very long time. So I find it easier to be out from the wall and clean it. Not sure what happened there, the camera shut off. Anyway, I want this out from the wall so I can clean up around it, and I just find it's best that way. With this rack, and the other thing about this rack, so when I'm roughing pieces out, these are Ellsworth gouge bowls, right? These are Ellsworth 5/8 bowl gouges. And I usually have 3 on the go, and I'll sharpen all 3, and then that will get me through quite a bit of the morning anyway when I'm roughing out, and I always just sharpen them all three at a time, and that way I'm not stopping and going to the grinder all the time, and that's just production, right? So, you know, I find lighting is always an issue, and now that I'm shooting video, it's even a bigger issue. I've tried all kinds of different lights, and you know, I just can't fork out $300 and $400 and $500 for lights, which I see for a lot of them. But you know, I may have to, because I'm just not happy with it. I would like to have some sort of a camera mount that swings around that I can put the camera on and clip lights to that as well, so that you guys always have good lighting when you're watching my videos. And by the way, I don't know if you've even noticed or not, but we've changed the lighting in here to LED lighting. And here, take a little look up the ceiling here. So it is definitely brighter in here than it has been in the past. So that's great. I think I'm still going to put up a couple more strips, and then it should be really good. But anyway, you know, overall, I've owned this for 8 years, and it's worked virtually every day. One thing about this business, if you're thinking about getting into trying to make wood turnings and sell them professionally and make a living at it, you're going to work, and you're going to work hard. I work 7 days a week for many, many years, and it's not an easy go. So, you know, once you get your show schedule set out and the shows you want to do and online sales, it's a big jump to get into. Especially for someone like me. I didn't really have any background in selling stuff at art shows or anything like that. So, you know, it's all trial and error. If you stick with it, you work hard, you figure it out. So anyway, on the wall back there, trying to zoom in here, right there, that is a burl slice that came apart a few years ago, and it hit me in the chest, took me off my feet. The lathe was doing 1200 RPM at the time, and it was pinched between centers, and I just took away enough material to expose a crack going all the way through that, and it just exploded. And so anyway, it hit me in the chest, knocked me off my feet. I was lucky that I never even bruised. It hit me flat. I was so lucky. But anyway, it hit me here. And I always wear a full face shield, and I know a lot of people don't. But you know, can you imagine, that's a pretty big piece of wood, and if I'm standing a little bit to the right and that thing comes off and hits you in the face and all you're wearing is a pair of glasses, I mean, it's going to be devastating. So anyway, there's horrific accidents happen on wood lathes all the time. I never think about turning this thing on unless I'm wearing a full face shield. I'm not going to harp on it. That's up to you. You want to do it. But I'm just saying that I could have been seriously injured or even possibly killed. So always wear a shield. So along with my lathe, I've got this rolling cart that I can move all around the lathe, whatever I want. And on this rolling cart is actually my vacuum setup for my vacuum chuck. So there's the piece that goes on the lathe. There's a vacuum pump underneath there. And you know, I keep my sandpaper on here. The finish, the wood bowl finish that goes into my squeeze bottles, it's always on there. And of course, my sandpaper. And so this is a handy rig to have. You know, I could have drilled holes and had my gouges sticking up like this. And you know, maybe I will in the future. But anyway, it's a handy rig, and I'm glad that I got it. So I don't know if you've ever noticed this in any of the videos or not, but this is just one of these little workmate type clamping affairs. I don't use it for that at all. As you can see, it's just a holder for all the drills that I use. So, you know, I like the DeWalt. So the model number is DWE1014, and it's a 3/8. But the great thing about this is its maximum RPM is 2800 RPM. So the way that I like to sand is if that's got 2800 RPM, I like to run the lathe at 14. It just seems to really cut really fast and is is efficient. So that's why I like to do it. Again, you know, buffers, white diamond, triple E, I use these drills. This is another of the Typhoon bits. Having difficulty. Anyway, it just saves time. If I only had the one drill, I'd have to take, you know, get the chuck and take them out of the chuck. And I know that may seem like it's not really that big of a deal, but you know, when you look over the run of a year, how many times you've had to stop and reconfigure things, you'd be shocked at how much time you really lost. So, you know, these drills, they're fairly cheap. I can't even remember how much I paid for them, but they're not a lot of money. And of course, Dremel tools. I usually got 3 of these. Right now I'm down to 1. And again, the air sander. This is just a cheap Princess Auto one. Works just fine. I did have an Ingersoll Rand one, but it wore out. All right, let's go look at the drum sander. Okay, so this is my Supermax 1938 drum sander. This is a great rig. This has seen, I don't know, thousands of those cutting boards that you see me make. It's variable speed. The sandpaper is fairly easy to change on it. I did buy these extension tables to go on the end of it. I recommend getting those. And it's got this IntelliSand. So if you put something through here and the machine gets too much resistance, it will actually slow the belt down and feed it through at a slower rate. So that's really good. If you do buy a drum sander, this is a good one. There's other good ones on the market as well. I just like the fact that it's got an open end and I can sand something that's, you know, 38 inches wide technically. I never have, but theoretically it can do it. The other thing too, if you're going to buy one of these machines, buy your sandpaper in bulk. You can buy these belts anywhere. It's way cheaper to buy the 3-inch belt stock and then make your own belts. That's what I found out. Let's look at the planer. Okay, so this is my King 20-inch industrial planer. And you know, again, I was looking for something with a larger capacity than 12-inch. And this certainly has filled the bill for there. Tons of power. It's got 4 blades in it, but it is super loud. So whenever I'm using it, I make sure that the doors are down in the shop so that I'm not aggravating the neighbors too badly. But it's a great machine. And I bought this used, and it came with its own little dust collector here. So this is actually a pretty good deal. That's just a trash can, and as you can see, this is some bungee cord. So if you had this hooked up to your normal dust collection system, it would absolutely fill your dust collection system in no time. And if it's a case like mine, it's actually a real pain to try and empty the bags. So all I use this dust collector for is just for the planer, and it grabs the big material, and you know, I'll just plane it and throw it in my green bin and it goes to compost. So I know that you can get these standalone dust collectors pretty cheaply. Yeah, just put a shroud on it like this is with some bungee cord, and that just wraps around the trash can, and it's easy to change, and that way you're not fooling around with bags and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not exactly what I would say, you know, it's not going to collect all the dust, but it's going to collect the majority of the material. You can't run this planer without having some sort of dust collection. It will clog up the inside of the machine. So what else? I guess we'll look at the chop saw station. Okay, so this is a 12-inch Milwaukee chop saw. Again, it's a great chop saw. This is where I also plug in my Air Shield Pro from Trend. This is my 3rd one of these that I've owned, That should show you how much I wear them out and how often they get used. I would love to get a 3M one, but there's just, I mean, there's so much money that I can't, $1,500 or something like that. These are around 500, and you know, it does a good job. I kind of wish that the face shield was a little more rigid than what it is. But typically I'm only wearing this when I'm finished turning and not when I'm roughing out. When I'm roughing out, I have a heavy gauge shield that I like to wear. So anyway, that's on the chop saw station. Again, if you're in this business, you're going to have to square up the ends of stuff before it goes on the lathe, so you need some sort of a place to do that. There's a little cherry bowl, crotch bowl that I'm working on. Very nice, huh? And above where my chop saw station is, and I know that a lot of people have seen this, this is where I keep all the bowls that are next to go on the lathe. So in a normal year, I go out to my drying shed, which I'll show in a bit. I bring in, say, 20 bowls a week, 25 bowls a week, and they all get face plates, these waste blocks, glued on the bottom of them. Then I mount them all on the lathe one at a time and trim them up. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. There's a lot of, coming out of the kiln, there's a lot of tension in the wood. You're coming from a different environment into this environment, and so wood's going to move. It doesn't matter what you do, wood is going to move with the seasons. So I like to trim them all up and then look and see what kind of condition issues they have. If they have really large cracks in them, I will then fix all of those major cracks. If they're small little cracks, I'll just leave them and do them when they go back on the lathe. So all of the major issues will be taken care of, and I'll just work through the pile and then come back to it. And you know, at the end of the week, hopefully I've got between 20 to 25 finished bowls ready to go out to market. Again, that just depends on the week and whatever's going on. Because some bowls are going to take a lot longer to do, like this burl. There's going to be a lot of maintenance involved in that. Where that piece of walnut, I can do that fairly quick. So that's the way that I like to do it in a normal year, which this is not. All right, what do we talk about next? Oh, let's go look at the fridge kilns. Again, if you're new here to my channel, this was a video and a series of videos that I did on building the fridge kiln. And as you can see right now, there's all kinds of different burls, resin pieces, stuff that I have planned. But of course, it all needs to be kiln dried before you do any of that. Again, over here, this is my freezer kiln. I have yet to convert it yet. I am going to convert it to this one here. This one's temperature controlled. And if you're curious how it's working, I haven't had any issues with it, and I'm glad that I did it. So if you've been wondering if you want to make a fridge kiln or not, just follow the directions on my fridge kiln build video, and you'll see that it's actually not that hard to do. And the results are very good. The other thing too is, you know, I'm fortunate that in a former life, I was a mechanic in the Army. And so, you know, I've got skills when it comes to fixing things. If you have any amount of machinery and you do this full time, there's going to come a time where you're going to have to fix stuff. And I don't care how reliable the equipment is, stuff breaks. And if you don't have the ability to fix it or the tooling to fix it, then, you know, you're gonna have to pay somebody else to do it. So I'm lucky that, you know, I've got a full set of tools, and there isn't much that I probably can't fix. That's what the Canadian Army does for you, the mechanics anyway. I can, and you know, throughout my career, I've worked on anything from a lawnmower to a leopard tank. So there's quite a broad experience. We don't just specialize typically on one type of equipment like some other countries do. So anyway, let's go look at my vacuum chamber. I've never showed you that. Yeah, so this is my vacuum chamber. To be perfectly honest with you, I can't even remember the name on it. Anyway, I mean, it's just a large cooking pot. I believe this is 15 inches across and probably 14 inches deep. And you know, it's got a thick acrylic lid on it. And you know what? It works. Vacuum goes on here. Here we can pull about 25 inches of vacuum, I think it is, maybe 24 inches of vacuum. And you know, it's not, I don't do a ton of stabilizing. The main reason for that is because the stabilizing resin is not food safe. So that's why I typically don't do a lot of it. Purely decorative stuff. And I've learned over the years that if you can offer things that are food safe and beautiful and functional, they'll sell. So I don't do a lot of stabilizing, but when I do, I certainly have a really good vacuum chamber to do so. So this is a little tray that I made, again, because I do a lot of outboard turning because I'm left-handed, that I made this rack, and you know, I'll keep a bowl gouge on here. You know, this is the Easy Wood Tools finisher, so I'll leave that on here, and usually I got a parting tool on here as well. Any of the stuff that I need, that's the adapter that goes on the outboard into my lathe that fits all of the chucks that I have. All of the face plates, I should say. So yeah, I can put this on and remove it. So this might be an option for some of you. And as you can see, it's actually fairly simple to build, not a big deal. Okay, so this is a look inside my dust collection room slash air compressor room slash junk room. If I don't want it out there, it unfortunately ends up in here. This is a double bag, 3 horsepower dust collector. From Busy Bee, and other than having to change some stuff in the motor, that's really been the only issue that I've had with this in quite some time, probably 12 years. So it's run good. I've never had any issues with it. Same thing with my air compressor, an Iron Horse, 60 gallon. And you know, it's been a great rig too. So no issues with that. I think I've owned that for probably about the same time, about 12 years. Well, there's not much that can really go wrong with a dust collector. So anyway, I'm happy with it. I'm pleased with this purchase from Busy Bee. What else? Let's have a look over here. This space is another space that just tends to, any of these horizontal surfaces just seem to get loaded up with crap. And you don't even know, all of a sudden, you're looking, it's all full. So, you know, if you got a workshop, you might know what I'm saying there. As far as chainsaws are concerned, this here is an electric Poulan. If I'm just cutting off really small bits, I'll use this. If not, I'll use my my 365 Husqvarna. I'll open up the doors, and as long as there's enough airflow through the shop, it shouldn't be an issue. And again, I have my 2130 XP, which is my really big saw, my slabbing saw, if I need to really tackle some really large pieces of wood. I typically like to have a 20-inch bar on my small saw, and my other big saw has a 42-inch bar. So, you know, that's gonna service any needs that I have. And again, I heat with wood. Why not? It's free heat as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so this is really the last of the machinery. That's 16.5-inch Delta. That thing is probably 25 years old. I recently broke this on it. But anyway, it works well. I mean, again, there's not really a lot that can go wrong with these. Of course, I've got a welder, and that's welding cable. That's what all that stuff is. Yeah, so this is the pressure pot that I use. It's from California Air Tools. And it's a really big pressure pot. I'm really happy with it. Really big wing nuts on it, so that's great. The only issue, and there's an Amazon link in the description below to get one. When you do get it, take all of these fixtures, or sorry, all of these, anything that's involved with plugging into the top here, take them out and reseal them. Don't even bother putting any pressure in it until you've done that, because you're just probably wasting your time. But anyway, other than that, this pot has been a really good addition to my shop. Okay, so this is really the last piece of equipment in the shop that I use quite a bit. This is a belt slash disc sander from Busy Bee here in Canada. This is 9 inches and the belt is 6 inches wide by 48, I think it is. You know, it's okay. It's an entry-level machine, standalone machine. You know, and I'll give you an example of why it's, you know, the way it is. I shouldn't be able to do that. The belt is tightened up as tight as it will go, and I believe it's the motor that's stalling on it. So, you know, it's probably something that I definitely would like to upgrade. I certainly would like to have a 12-inch disc sander, and I know that I can make one and put it on the lathe, but it's really nice to have the belt sander on it too. Anyway, the dust collection does work good on it. That is one benefit. It's easy to change the belts in and out on it. That's not an issue either. But you know, it is what it is. It's not something that you're going to make a living on and use all day, that's for sure. Yeah, so the only other thing that I haven't really talked about is a table saw and a jointer. You know, I just don't really have the need for one all that often. Anyway, it's all wrapped up in the back of my shop, and as you can see, it gets used as a tabletop basically. Anyway, it's a Delta 10-inch table saw, and it's the direct drive, so it's extremely underpowered. So, you know, that is something I would like to upgrade in the future. And the jointer is an entry-level jointer as well. I got this equipment when my wife and I started doing, she was teaching toll painting classes, and I was making all the things for her shop, or sorry, for her teaching. So anyway, that was a very long time ago. I'm going to say probably 20 years ago, more maybe. Anyway, it served its purpose then, but if I could get them upgraded, I certainly would do that. So this is a little downdraft table that I made. Actually, I wanted to show you, these are the LED strips that I put up on the ceiling here. Got one left over that I'm going to put up. Anyway, this is a downdraft table that I made, and it's very simple, just a series of holes on the top. This is a 4-inch connector, goes onto my dust collector. I can actually just bring that over that's onto my drum sander and hook it onto here. It does a real good job capturing dust. And I can also put a vacuum attachment to go on my sander, and that virtually gets no dust at all. So that's great. So pretty simple to make. I mean, I just put some baffles in it like this, made sure that, you know, it wasn't choked off with air to give the top some support, and then drilled a series of holes in it and just put some router pad on top of it. That's it. And it's a good size too. So when I'm doing boards, and again, I think I cover this in my, where I make the boards, that video there. So I'll just go back to the door that I enter the shop with, and I'll just do a panoramic view of what is in here. And we'll go to the drying shed. Yeah, so this is a view of the shop when I first come in, and I'll just do a little view around here, kind of the way that the shop is laid out. And of course the bandsaw, it's over next to the garage doors, because that's where the logs or the bowl blanks first come in to be processed, so that's why that's sitting there. But you know, it's a good shop. Here's the new LED lighting. Really happy with that. Just need a little bit more, and I think it's going to be really good. Anyway, let's go out to the drying shed. So yeah, here we are inside the drying shed. Lots of boards to be finished, lots of bowls to be finished. You name it. All the bowls you see on the top shelf are actually ready. They've been kiln dried and they've been sitting out here waiting to be finished. There's another view. And over here, I've got a real good selection of pepper mill and salt mill blanks. Different species, depends on what you want. Again, I don't make a lot of pepper mills, salt mills, but when I do, it's nice to have a good variety of wood for people to choose from. Alright, so if you're curious, the dimensions on this drying shed is 16 by 20, and I realize for a lot of you that might be, oh, that's the size of my workshop. I'm very fortunate to have this. Again, it's never big enough. I could probably easily fill 2 of these with wood. At any one time, I could have a couple thousand bowls in here and 1,000 boards or more drying as well. So there's quite a bit of inventory, and I like to have a good selection for somebody if they want something specific. It's not heated, no insulation. It does sit in the shade probably 50% of the time, so that's good. I wouldn't want a structure that sees a lot of sunlight. I want this to stay relatively cool in here, and it is always cool in here, cooler in here than it is outside in the summertime. In the wintertime, I guess it really doesn't matter. Anyway, let's go in and just finish things up. Okay, so these are pretty much the tools that I use. I don't really use much more than this. This Easy Wood Tools finisher is a new addition, and this is actually the first carbide tool that I've ever owned. And the only reason that I really bought it is because of the resin work. As far as doing bowls is concerned, this is a 5/8 bowl gouge. Got to zoom in. By David Ellsworth. It's got a really long handle on it, so it gives you really good leverage. And this is really the only gouge that I use to do bowls with. 3/16 inch parting tool by Crown, and I should say that the Ellsworth gouge is done by Crown as well. I really like Crown tools. Anyway, these 2 tools, these are really all you need to make bowls. You don't really need anything else. I see a lot of hobbyists and a lot of professionals using these Easy Wood tools, and these are a good product. I'm not knocking them, but they're scrapers. You're probably going to get a better surface by using a bowl gouge and doing shear cuts, certainly on the outside of a bowl with a bowl gouge, than you will with any scrapers. When I do center work, I use come on in there. It's not going to work. This is another parting tool. It's very, very thin, so I typically will use this when I'm doing pepper mills. This is another tool made by Crown, and I've featured this before. It's a skew gouge, but there's no flutes in it, so it's more forgiving to use than, say, a skew like this. This is just, I think it's a 3/8 skew, maybe, can't remember now, something like that. And as far as roughing is concerned for center work, this is a 3/4 rough and gouge by Henry Taylor Tools. They make good tools as well. Zoom in there, geez. And 1.5 inches. If you want to hog off some serious work, then this will get the job done. Anyway, there it is. Anyway, that's it. I mean, these tools here are really all you need to make pretty much anything. You can make boxes with this, pepper mills, bowls, whatever. So anyway, let's get to the announcement of the 15K winner. So I'm just going to get to it. Gene Ledbetter, you are the winner of the 15,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. Gene Ledbetter. I've already sent Gene a message to his account informing him that he's won. I'm just waiting to hear back from him. If I haven't heard back from him, hopefully Friday, I'll hear back from him when he sees this. Anyway, it was a long process to pick Gene's name. So the next giveaway, maybe we're going to use comments or something like that, just to try and streamline the process. It was pretty painful to do this manually. Anyway, Gene, you are the winner. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. There's a lot of things in here that I would buy again, and there's a lot of things in here that I wouldn't buy again. And you know, the lathe, although the tailstock is probably the biggest issue with that. That lathe has been a good lathe. It has only let me down once in 8 years, and it has seen a ton of use. If the tailstock was better, it would certainly be a higher grade lathe than what it is. Again, as we go into 2021, I'd like to thank my subscribers in here and the people that watch my videos. Thank you so much for doing that, to helping me support my family. You know, when I started on this, really in April, that's when I really fired up my account. I just didn't really know how this would go, and you know, I'm humbled that in that time frame I've got 15,000 subscribers and growing. So thank you so much from my family and from me. Thank you so much. You know, 2021's got to be better, folks. It cannot be any worse than 2021. Knock on wood. Hopefully that's the case. Again, don't forget about the links in the description below to Starbond for 10% off, and sandpaper.ca as well. And I'm not sure what we're going to do next week. I'd like to maybe do a comparison video with resin and a CA glue. So maybe that's what we'll do. But anyway, congratulations, Gene. I'll wait to hear back from you. Meantime, everybody take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.